Hello and welcome to Bags of Action. My name is Pete and this is a 5-minute Bags of Action review of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them from 2016. The adventures of writer Newt Scamander in New York's secret community of witches and wizards 70 years before Harry Potter reads his book in school. Now this started as a spin-off book from the Harry Potter series and is now meant to be turning into 5 feature films. It looks like they're trying to do to Harry Potter what they did with The Hobbit to keep the Lord of the Rings money coming in. So it was directed by David Yates, who of course did the last 4 Harry Potter films and also did The Legend of Tarzan, and it's written by J.K. Rowling herself, rather than having a screenwriter adapting her story like in the films that have gone before. Cast-wise, you've got Eddie Redmayne, Colin Farrell, Katherine Waterston from Alien Covenant and Inherent Vice, Samantha Morton from Minority Report and The Walking Dead, Dan Fogler from Sharknado 5 and The Walking Dead, Ezra Miller from Justice League and Suicide Squad, of course, Carmen Ejogo from Alien Covenant and Metro back in the day, Alison Sudol from The Last Full Measure, and Jon Voight makes an appearance too. Now I love all the Harry Potter films and the rich world building that was created in those books and was adapted to make those movies. So I went into this with very high hopes. Rowling's writing it, David Yates is directing it, and it's all part of the Harry Potter universe. But the synopsis I read kind of sums it up. There wasn't really like a driving force, it's just the adventures set 70 years before. And that was part of the problem. Like from very early on in this film, a few things became apparent. J.K. Rowling probably needed a more experienced screenwriter on board. If this was a standalone film with no franchise to link it to, it would have been very confusing, and I think I might have been out completely after half an hour. Structurally, the story is set up in a way that means the first hour is needed before you really know what it's about. That's a lot to get your head around, and some of it isn't very clear, and it means you're not really rooting for anyone, and you don't really know what their motivation is, which for me is a massive drawback. Harry Potter works for a few specific reasons. It's very British. Not necessarily real-life British, but the kind of British that works well on film. A boarding school with that Enid Blyton old-fashioned charming view of Britain. So relocating things to 1920s New York loses some of that magic, pardon the pun, and by being more universal, it becomes something less unique and just a little bit rote. Also, the Harry Potter books and films are a coming-of-age story. It's about a boy reaching adolescence, and you invest in him and his friends, plus the cast of characters around them. The wizarding is just an added layer of interest, but the characters are what matter. Here, with no school year structure to hang your hat on, and a new set of characters whose motivation is unclear, as I said, you're left with all of the style. There are some fantastic beasts, of course, marvellous magic and impressive action set pieces, but for me there was none of the substance of the Harry Potter movies, particularly of the later Harry Potter movies that, ironically, David Yates himself directed. So that was the real problem here. I didn't care. Certainly not for the first hour of the 2-hour 7-minute runtime, and by the time I did, I was caught up in a plot that didn't quite make sense. Redmayne plays Newt as an uncomfortable man who is closer to the beast than to other people. He does that well, and Colin Farrell does what he does well too. The rest of the cast, in particular Waterston, Fogler and Sudol, are almost wandering around, following the main character, looking for a purpose to be in their story. Somewhere underneath the skin of this movie, and based on the well-done final act, there's a really strong 90-minute film. But this felt like a bit of a mess to me. And much like the latest Star Wars film, more and more beasts seem to be introduced, purely to sell merchandise, rather than to make the story captivating. Maybe I've become jaded by franchises and movies that don't need to exist, which prequels often fall into. I can't imagine what they'll do in the second film to improve matters, let alone how they're going to stretch things out over 5 movies. I kept thinking how the story could be improved while I was watching it, which I never felt during any of the Harry Potter films. At least they had a focus, a Philosopher's Stone, an Order of the Phoenix, a Prisoner of Azkaban, something to latch onto that isn't just a load of beasts living in a bag. To put it personally, I think I'm going to save my time, rewatch the original movies, and find some new stories that aren't such a blatant cash grab from now on. So yeah, disappointing to say the least. And I'm going to give Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them 2 bags of action out of 5. Have you seen Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them? Or maybe even the one after? Do you agree with my assessment of it? Feel free to comment below or get in touch with us. You can do it on email, Facebook or on Twitter. We have new episodes coming out all the time alongside our full-length podcast. Don't forget to give us a like, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell to get regular notifications. Bags of Action will always be free. But if you'd like to buy us a coffee, you can do that at our Ko-fi page.